Yo, Bitcoin just crashed to its lowest level in 5 months, despite the historic announcement that happened on Friday regarding the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Many people are wondering what the F is going on. Is Bitcoin headed back to 60K purgatory level? Could we hit the infamous 58K gang? Is 58K gang back? Or is this another great asymmetric buying opportunity in Bitcoin's history? The world's largest superpower, the United States of America, has just endorsed Bitcoin, and yet the market seems unsatisfied with this game-changing economic bombshell. Did the Bitcoin whales use this announcement as a way to unload their Bitcoin bags, or does this dump have more to do with the general global economic uncertainty due to the recent election of Donald J. Trump? Today, we're going to be giving you a full breakdown of the significance of this Bitcoin announcement, try to uncover why Bitcoin is dumping, and explain to you why you should always buy the effing dip. All right, everybody, no more delay. I want to bring up my legendary co-host, who's always optimistic, Optimus Fields, in the co-host chair. And of course, our very special guest for today, we got Adam Reeds in the house, CEO of Ledent. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump straight into today's news. We got so much to unpack. What's the very famous saying? Buy when there's blood on the streets. So anyways, there was a very, very historic meeting that happened in the White House. Let me just show this post first. This is real life. This is not a, this is not Photoshop. This actually happened. This is a real post. The White House said, America will be the Bitcoin superpower of the world. The golden age has begun, and it's a screenshot, of course, the establishment of the strategic Bitcoin reserve and United States digital asset stockpile, and extremely fitting. If you've been in Bitcoin for a while, it's maximum pain every single time. The Monday after this reserve, we dump from like 90K to 78, 79K, which is absolutely hilarious. But I think a lot of people are a little bit distracted. Here's Adam Back mentioned in the white paper. He says, I quote, people are undervaluating the U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve announcement. It is huge for moving the Overton window. The actual U.S. government is promoting Bitcoin. Here is Ryan Rasmussen. He says, the quote, the end game was never the U.S. government buys all the world's Bitcoin. A U.S. strategic reserve means other countries will buy Bitcoin. Wealth managers have no excuse. Financial institutions have no excuse. Pension/endowments have no excuse. Fear of the U.S. selling is gone. The U.S. will likely buy more. Likelihood of states buying just went up. Probability the government outlaws Bitcoin is definitely zero. This changes everything. Zoom out. I think he's absolutely right when he says that. And here is just, we have a clip of for you guys from the summit itself. Let's check it out.
Are ending Operation Choke Point 2.0.
Here, here.
Some people really suffered. It was ridiculous what they were doing, but in the end, they came around, but they came around for the wrong reasons. They came around only because they wanted votes, and they saw that tens of millions of people were against them because of what they were doing. I also want to express my strong support for the efforts of lawmakers in Congress as they work on bills to provide regulatory certainty for dollar-backed stablecoins and the digital assets market. They're working very hard on that. This is a tremendous opportunity for economic growth and innovation in our financial sector, and will really go a long way. I think there's going to be a tremendous, we feel like pioneers in a way.
Absolutely historic moment, the end of Operation Choke Point 2.0. If you guys were around last year, if you're a Bitcoin entrepreneur, if you're a Bitcoin business in the United States, it was quite scary. The previous administration was not exactly very friendly towards the industry. They attack the industry. You can make a very good argument about that. Essentially, the Trump administration saying, "Look, that's all over. That's all done." Also, breaking news as well. Quote: the Treasury and Commerce departments will also explore new pathways to accumulate additional Bitcoin holdings for the reserve, provided it's done at no cost to the taxpayer. My administration is working to end the federal bureaucracy's war on crypto, which was really going on pretty wildly during Biden until the election came out. And who's in charge of that, by the way, this budget neutral acquisition of Bitcoin is Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick was just quoted on Anthony Pompliano's podcast, basically saying he owns tens of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. He actually plans to own hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. And again, no one is better than their incentives, right? So very positive news overall. And when in doubt, it's important to zoom out and just remind everybody that we've been here before. We've been here many times throughout Bitcoin's history. This was the 2017 bull market. We had multiple 38%, 33%, 36%, 29% drawdowns. And in hindsight, they were all tremendous buying opportunities. Here is the stock heat map. It's only the bloodbath isn't just happening within our industry. It seems like it's happening in the stock market as well, and it's affecting some of the largest companies. I mean, Tesla, I think, is down 50% since the inauguration day. Apple's down, Nvidia's down, Google's down, Meta's down, Amazon is down. So, I mean, the stock market has been suffering, but I mean, this is actually something that Treasury Secretary was talking about. I believe Treasury Secretary Bassett was talking about, and essentially he's saying, like, look, there was some madness that was happening during the previous administration. We have to cool that down. There's going to be some pain in the short term. I think Trump hinted to that as well. He had a interview on Fox News on Sunday. And what I will say is what my personal perception of why the Trump administration is doing this and why they're, talking about the tariffs, and that, of course, the uncertainty spooks the markets. The markets crash because of it. I think, and maybe I'm speculating here, maybe I'm going out on a limb, but I think Trump is essentially trying to get Powell to lower rates. I think it really comes down to that. Powell doesn't have a choice but to keep rates at where they are right now because inflation is running hot at 3%. But if the market crashes, they're not going to have a choice but to go money printer, go burr, right? So I think this is what's happening. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I think for Trump to really fulfill his agenda, for America to really go into the golden age, money printer has to go burr again. And the Fed won't do it. The Fed won't lower interest rates. We're still in a QT environment. And again, in a QT environment, risk assets don't necessarily perform all that great. So I really think Trump's trying to strong arm the Fed into lowering rates and turning on the money printer. But yeah, I mean, this is, I'm not going to lie, like compared to all the previous cycles, I think Bitcoin has definitely underperformed what a lot of people were expecting. A lot of people were thinking, we'd be at 130, 40K by now. But essentially Q1 is almost over and we're back at 79K. Adam, what are your thoughts on this, man? We had a historic announcement. Me and Opti were feeling euphoria on Friday. That post from the White House basically saying, listen, the United States is going to be the Bitcoin capital of the world, not Bitcoin and altcoins, Bitcoin capital of the world. What's going on, Adam? Could you make sense of this? Like, why is the price dumping instead of pumping?
Look, I think let's go back to the actual announcement and think about what was said. I think at the early of the week, there was a lot of confusion in the market. Trump tweeted putting Bitcoin in the same bucket as a whole bunch of other alts, other shit coins. And, the market was confused. I think all of us Bitcoiners were, what's going on? What happened to the promise, Trump made at last year's Bitcoin conference? And then we got a lot of clarity on Friday. So I think that was super positive for the space. We saw him put Bitcoin as a strategic asset and put the others in a digital asset reserve that's TBD, frankly. So we'll see whether there's any favoritism on other alts. But for the time being, we've got Bitcoin in a completely different asset class, which is what it should be. And I think all Bitcoiners were happy with that outcome. The other thing that the news snuck in on Friday, back to Operation Choke Point 2.0, is the Office of the Comptroller, which is the entity that controls and regulates the major banks in the US. They snuck out an announcement quietly on Friday afternoon that really clarified that US banks can hold Bitcoin without challenges, and they removed some red tape that required them to come up with separate policies and regulation specific for digital assets. So they basically said, don't worry, you can touch Bitcoin, it's okay now. And obviously in a lot more legalese than that. But that was really powerful as well. So I think we'll see some interesting things coming out as banks get permission to hold the asset again. So overall, really positive week. As for the price, who knows? This is what Bitcoin does. I think we'll keep a long-term view. The right policies in place now, so it's only up from here.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. It's only up for here. A lot of people, I saw some speculation from just social media and just people talking in general. It's saying, we hit the top. It's the cycle's over. It's a left translated cycle. What are your takes on that, Adam?
It's as far as we hit the top, I don't think so. I think, look, this not only paved the way for US to hold Bitcoin, but every country is going to follow. And now we're in a FOMO zone where others are going to say, hey, the US can lead. What I tell any chance I get the chance to speak to government, I say this is the opportunity to be the Swiss banking like it was many years ago, where the entire world wants to hold their assets in another place. And if the US does this, there's a reason why, if you're Latin American or frankly, many other resident of other countries in the world, there's a reason why you put your money in a US bank, because you feel great about it. And the regulations there to ensure you feel safe doing that. And they can do the exact same thing with digital assets, right? Many families are going to start to own this asset. Some will self-custody. Many won't be comfortable learning how to do that. I think they should, of course, but that's a piece up the learning curve. And they're going to want to custody it somewhere. And I think they're going to say, hey, where can I put it? Let's put it in, entities like Fidelity, other places that I'm comfortable in the traditional space. Let's put my Bitcoin there. And so other countries are going to want that, because the best way to make money is to be able to charge fees on assets that are not non-residents, right? So that's an amazing way for the US to bring more activity into their economy by attracting non-US resident assets back onto their own soil. So I think they're waking up to that, and it's going to be an arms race. Other countries have to catch up. They're going to lose their own country's assets to the US.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, it's the game theory playing out, right, in real time.
Yeah.
And that presents an amazing buying opportunity, right? You get a 33% discount. The fact that Bitcoin is down 33% after this historic announcement on Friday tells you that you have a discount, because before Bitcoin peaked at 109, there wasn't a strategic Bitcoin reserve when Bitcoin was at 109. There wasn't the fact that the United States government was going to be buying Bitcoin when it was at 109, right? None of those things were true, right? So, this is a great opportunity to stack the dip. We just broke 500 live viewers on YouTube. If you guys are enjoying the show, help us break 100 likes within the first 20 minutes of the show. So smash that like button. Shout out to the Rumble audience as well. About 200 or 235 of you guys watching live on Rumble. Unfortunately, X is down right now, so we're not able to stream the show to X today. But anyways, guys, smash that like button. Share today's video. You're listening to Simply Bitcoin Live. I'm Nico, my co-host Opti in the house, and our special guest for today, Adam, the CEO of Ledin. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on this, brother? I mean, we were so hyped on Friday's live stream. It was popping off, one of the best live streams we've ever done. I mean, it was historic. We were going to cover the press conference. Trump came out there, and he's like, Operation Choke Point 2.0 ending. Everyone was clapping. Saylor was like, look at my orange tie. It was a happy environment. And then over the weekend, it was like, boom, bam, bam, boom, bam. What happened, Opti? What happened? I blame you, Opti. This is your fault.
Yeah, it's always my fault. The one thing that we did here, I'm going to cover the response to the strategic Bitcoin reserve announcement. But one thing we did hear come out of the White House Crypto Summit, which I think most of us kind of feel it was like a nothing burger. I honestly thought it was going to be a lot longer. It felt like it ended after 15 minutes and it just like suddenly stopped. And you're like, what did I just watch? I thought this was going to be like an hour and a half open discussion. And they basically just like pat themselves on the back about the strategic Bitcoin reserve. But one thing that I thought was pretty interesting, it wasn't exactly what we wanted to hear come out of the conference, but Scott Bessent said that they are going to reevaluate the IRS policies around Bitcoin. So I think that is a pretty good development. Obviously, it's probably not what a lot of Bitcoiners wanted to hear. I think everyone wants to hear, you know, we're going to treat the Bitcoin price like the fiat exchange rate. So at least we got some signal of what's to come down the pipeline. But overall, it did seem like a nothing burger on Friday of the White House Crypto Summit. But like you guys were covering, we did hear some pretty good stuff, some good sound bites come out of that. But I think in response to the strategic Bitcoin reserve, obviously, all of us Bitcoiners, this is all we think about, right? Like, we are so in tune with Bitcoin news that this was a huge announcement for us. But obviously, most people aren't following along very closely with what's going on in the Bitcoin space. Again, you guys are, what do they call us? Psychopathic Bitcoin stackers out there. So we follow Bitcoin news constantly. That's all we care about. But if you really talk to a lot of people, they probably don't even know that a strategic Bitcoin reserve was announced, and they probably don't understand the significance of it, even if it was a symbolic significance here. And that, you know, on Main Street is probably not making a lot of waves, but we are seeing in response that either on a nation state level, on a federal level in the US, of course, on the state level, it is starting to make its rounds and things are starting to escalate here. So it is very interesting, the game theory playing out right now. And I think kind of putting it into historical context, when the ETF was launched, we all saw something very similar. The Bitcoin price dumped, and us Bitcoiners like, what is going on? This is bullish news here. Why isn't the price pumping? Well, you know, we got some short-term pain. Bitcoin price dumped around the ETF, and then following it a couple of months later, the price starts ripping. So if we see something similar, then this is, you know, the generational buying, you know, asymmetric moment right now where everyone's asleep at the wheel. They don't understand the significance of the world economic superpower endorsing Bitcoin. The price dumped. Obviously, you can say there's a few different things. Either traders are really like unsatisfied with the mechanics of the strategic Bitcoin reserve. The main point is, oh, it doesn't seem like they're going to buy Bitcoin, and that's kind of why the price dumped, at least from most people's kind of takes. Though from now, we know that they are announcing they're going to figure out ways to buy more Bitcoin. So that's a complete wash here. Obviously, the crypto summit, people are kind of wondering about capital gains. Didn't really talk about that. So that's probably why there's some bearish sentiment right now. But I think just in historical context, looking at the ETF, it just means like the Bitcoin price is going to pump. And yeah, you know, I think we kind of got back to that CME gap closing, and it just means that we are, you know, the longer Bitcoin price goes down and sideways, the harder it's going to pump to the upside. And so this is the time to be buying Bitcoin. Like, look, no one knows what's going on with Bitcoin. If you are here watching this show, you do have asymmetric knowledge and an asymmetric understanding of what's going on in the world. And again, this isn't a Bitcoin price thing. There is a lot of uncertainty in the markets right now, especially surrounding Trump and the tariffs and what they're going to do with, you know, the U.S. balance sheet. There's a lot of stuff going on with Doge right now. So the stock market's completely wrecked right now. Bitcoin's down. Obviously, Bitcoin as the most liquid asset, period. Of course, we're going to get the first sell-off, but I think Bitcoin will react very strong in the next couple of months. Obviously, as a Bitcoiner, you're like, man, you know, it's the poking the Bitcoin meme right now. It's like, will you do something? Like, we're so bored with these price movements here. We were, you know, what we were promised 150K like today, and yet, you know, I guess now we'll wait for 150K first 100 days of the Trump presidency. But there is something interesting that we have heard over the weekend. It's not necessarily new, but a lot of people have been talking about the fact that Trump isn't really looking at the stock market anymore as an indicator of his presidency doing good. So we can speculate that maybe he is looking at the Bitcoin price as an indicator of him doing well as a president. Obviously, he's very big on, you know, economic booms right now. And I think it's very interesting, like what Nico was saying about Trump forcing Jay Powell, you know, to lower interest rates. We got to remember a lot of the voting bloc for Trump, they seemingly don't hold assets. So they're not really, you know, stock market deep. They, you know, they might have some real estate right now. So it seems like a good block of the Trump voting bloc are Bitcoiners now. And so, you know, they can wreck the economy, but all of us people living paycheck to paycheck are like, all right, cool, bro. Like, I'm really not getting wrecked. And, you know, there is an economic war going on right now between the US and Europe, or rather the US and EU right now. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market. And as we all know, you know, people go into the more risk-less or risk-off assets. Even though us Bitcoiners think Bitcoin is the risk-off asset, people are still, you know, going to gold or real estate or cash right now because there is so much uncertainty. But I think Bitcoin's going to respond very favorably. Obviously, I still think this year is going to be bullish AF. And I think it's just the beginning. I think in historical context, just look at what happened after the ETF. I think in a month or two, we're going to look back at this and be like, man, I wish I would have stacked harder in March.
Exactly. Spot on. I want to give a shout out to the live stream. 635 of you guys watching live on YouTube and 318 of you guys watching live on Rumble. Unfortunately, X is not up today, but if you guys are enjoying the show so far, smash that like button. We have so much news and content to cover for you guys today. We have a clip of Rachel Maddow essentially dissing the strategic reserve. We're going to cover that for you guys. And then, of course, there's news of Strategy announces a 21 million STRK at the market program. Essentially, Michael Saylor wants to raise $21 billion to buy more Bitcoin. I'm going to ask Adam how he's doing all of this because it just seems like he found an infinite money glitch to continue to buy Bitcoin, which is absolutely crazy. We have the clip of him basically saying, I'm the only one wearing an orange tie at the White House, which I thought was really funny. So it's going to be a great show. And of course, during the culture segment, we're going to take advantage of the fact that Adam is in the house today, and we're going to be talking to him about Ledin and about a bunch of other topics as well. So it's going to be a jam-packed show for you guys. The price may be dumping, but Simply Bitcoin's live stream is definitely pumping. All right, everybody, before we go into it, Opti's cracking up. I do want to give a shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor, best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack, bitcoinwell.com. Buy real Bitcoin, enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin on-chain or via the Lightning Network in Canada or the USA. To get started, you put in your email address. What makes Bitcoin Well different is that it's a non-custodial platform, meaning when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, as soon as the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. Also, if you're looking to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more, check out Bitcoin Well Infinite. If you're a higher net worth individual and you're tired of dealing with finicky UI, and you're tired of dealing with just, you want the capability of being able to buy Bitcoin yourself with a person that's dedicated to you, an account representative, instead of going through whatever. This Bitcoin Well Infinite is for you. You can call or text every time you want to buy Bitcoin. It's a white glove service. You guys will really, really enjoy it. Also, if you're trying to get paid in Bitcoin, Americans can now get paid in Bitcoin sent directly to their personal Bitcoin wallet. Share your Bitcoin wallet direct deposit details with your employer. Set your Bitcoin/dollar split and receive sats instead of fiat with every paycheck. Check out bitcoinwell.com today. And by the way, if you use promo code SIMPLY, you will get 3 tosses into the wishing well for an opportunity to win up to 1 million sats. That's right. If you go to bitcoinwell.com/simply, if you use promo code SIMPLY, you get 3 tosses into the wishing well. Every toss, you have an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. All right, everybody, let's hit the numbers. We have tons to talk about. Let's check it out.
I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to HODL your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on StampSeed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today.
All right, everybody. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $79,110. Block height 887,191. Sats per dollar 1,264. Market cap 1.57 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap 7.66%. Percentage issued 94.45%. Decline from all-time high negative 27.5%. Realized monetary inflation 0.94%. In the grand scheme of things, party is just getting started, I would say. And again, my favorite stat out of all this is the realized monetary inflation, continuing to take fiat currencies to absolute school. Anyways, here's a clip of Rachel Maddow essentially reacting to the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Find that quite interesting. And let's check out the clip, and then we'll have a conversation about it. Let's check it out.
I should say I'm by no means a crypto expert. I'm not going to give you a lecture on blockchain or meme coins or any of that. I just, A, I don't know, and B, I don't care. But I do think it's worth looking at this crypto thing a little bit, only because it is a deeply, deeply old-fashioned, simple scam at this point, which points right to the White House. News from the White House tonight really gives us no choice. You have to look at it. Hopefully, the broad strokes of crypto trading are not complicated. It's like when there was the Beanie Baby craze in the late 90s. People started buying these stuffed animals, right? Beanie Babies, kind of inherently not worth much, but people were speculating on them, right? It was a Beanie Baby trading bubble. Other than maybe some emotional value if you had one as a child, Beanie Babies didn't have much inherent value, but it was worth buying up a bunch of them because there was speculation on the premise that as collectibles, maybe one day your Beanie Babies collection could be worth a lot of money. Cryptocurrencies operate on the same idea. They have no inherent value at all. The only value they have is if you have some reason to believe that somebody else might want to buy them from you in the future. That's it. And what that means in very practical terms is that convincing other people that your crypto is popular and in demand, convincing people that your crypto thing is going to have value in the future, it's going to be collectible as Beanie Babies, that is key to actually making money. One of the things the SEC alleged a couple of years ago in 2023 was that Justin Sun had orchestrated a scheme to pay celebrities to tout his cryptocurrencies without disclosing that he had paid them to do so. So in other words, he was creating the impression of hype and organic enthusiasm around his product when that hype didn't naturally exist. That was the allegation, which, again, Justin Sun has denied. And now the SEC has halted the case right after he gave more than $50 million to the Trump family. The idea of hype in cryptocurrency is that people should buy in soon, right? Get in on the ground floor while it's cheap because it's about to go way up in value because there's so much interest in it. You get in on the ground floor now, you'll make a bundle. It's the whole hype. It's the whole scam. And when I mentioned that the news tonight leaves us not much choice but to talk about this stuff right now, this is what I mean. The White House just posted this video tonight of Donald Trump signing an executive order establishing a digital Fort Knox, as someone says to the president off camera. Trump apparently signing this executive order, creating what they're describing as a federal government cryptocurrency reserve. Now, Imagine the Beanie Babies again for a second. Imagine Trump had just announced that the U.S. government was going to buy up tons of Beanie Babies. We are going to establish a federal government reserve of billions of Beanie Babies. What do you think would happen to the value of Beanie Babies? Right? Oh, it turns out there's a huge guaranteed buyer for these things. They're buying billions of them. I should mention that when Trump first brought up this idea, this cryptocurrency national reserve thing on Sunday, he name-checked 5 specific cryptocurrencies that would be going into this government reserve. And Trump's own cryptocurrency company, his own project, bought $20 million of those currencies, of 2 of those currencies this week, ahead of what we now know will be a White House summit on crypto tomorrow. If the whole idea here is that you hype something by making it appear that there is a market, that there's demand, that there's lots and lots of buyers for specific crypto, and people who get in on the ground floor and own it, boy, that value is going to go up. Well, it would seem that President Trump and his family and the White House specifically are now playing that game.
I mean, so much to unpack there. Okay, so in a way, she's kind of right, in the sense that, like, you know, obviously you guys know that, you know, we're not a big fan of meme coins on Simply Bitcoin, but you know, like you could equate meme coins to Beanie Babies, like in that way. She's definitely, maybe she has a point, but I would say that, you know, in regards to, and I love how she said digital assets. She didn't say Bitcoin strategic reserve. You guys notice that? She avoided that for some reason. Like Bitcoin is obviously superior. I mean, 2017 is calling and they're asking for their excuses back, essentially, for the FUD lines back, because, you know, we went through this Beanie Baby stuff. We've heard this before. We've heard this talking point before. Another thing also, too, is that channel tends to be ideologically opposed to Trump. So anything that Trump does, they're just going to take the contrarian side. But in a way, you're essentially giving, by Trump going down the path of launching his own meme coin 3 days before the inauguration and this whole meme coin stuff, you're essentially like, you're vindicating Gary Gensler. You're making Gary Gensler seem like a reasonable person, because everything he said was going to happen essentially happened. And I think that the general retail and just people in general don't know the difference between they don't know the fundamental difference between Bitcoin and crypto. They still kind of equate the two, right? So I think, you know, people that have negative experiences with, you know, the bottom of the barrel altcoins, or altcoins in general, like, I think, you know, they're going to essentially, there could be a situation where, you know, they go to government and say, listen, you know, bail us out. This is terrible. You know, this industry is filled with fraud. And again, it didn't really help that the president of Argentina launched a meme coin. Trump launched a meme coin. Like, it kind of plays into all their narratives, all the things that they've been saying. And obviously Rachel Maddow is taking advantage of that. And, you know, and people don't know about Bitcoin. Like, they don't know about Bitcoin. So, you know, again, I'm very happy with how the White House went about it. They clearly could tell the difference between Bitcoin and the rest of the industry. And I think the strategic reserve was beyond what a lot of us had expected. So shout out to David Sachs and Howard Lupnick. I'm sure had a big role to play in all that. So you got to give them credit where credit is due. But, like, at the same time, like, you know, why give fuel to, you know, your political opponents, right? Like, why give fuel to your political? You're playing into the narrative, right? And she's obviously taking advantage of that. And in a lot of ways, she's right? Because I don't know what the latest meme coins are. I have no idea what the thing is, but like, what is the fundamental difference between a meme coin and a Beanie Baby? I don't know. Maybe a Beanie Baby is like in real life. You could actually hold a Beanie Baby. So, you know, anyhow, I'm going to pass it on to Adam. Adam, what's your take on this, man? It's surprising that so soon. Everything Trump does, he gets pushback on. But in a lot of ways, like, I'm not a big fan of Rachel Maddow, but in a lot of ways, she's right.
Look, I mean, her opening sentence, I don't know how she didn't lose 95% of viewers when you say, I know nothing about this topic, but I'm going to go on a rant about it anyways. And you can take me as credible or not. But to start off by saying, blockchain, kind of throwing it up like, just all these buzzwords and then diving into it. But look, there's nothing more than a skeptic loves. It's saying, hey, look at this really rich guy, wealthy unfairly. And he bought, 20 million of this before, and this is why he did it, right? And that's an easy thing to hang on to. So I think you're right in that she makes some credible references. Obviously, she's wrong on the topic overall due to complete ignorance. But I think that's an easy setup to get people's attention to say, look at how this person is enriching himself even further by front running the taxpayer, really, and that's you. So I think one thing to kind of just Nick Carter put in a tweet about that was pretty interesting when it came to the U.S. benefiting, right? He said, the U.S. already gets capital gains tax on Bitcoin. So, if the policy is set right, do we need a strategic reserve at all, right? Is the U.S. government need to hold Bitcoin, or can it just get the policy right and then, encourage taxpayers to own Bitcoin, and then naturally it gets percentage of the upside through taxation as that Bitcoin increases in value? So that was an interesting point about, how relative is strategic reserve going to be relative to the amount of Bitcoin held by, Americans, right? And then getting the future value from that. So I think there's, for good reason, skepticism on the strategic reserve overall. And I think there's an important debate as to how much Bitcoin the US government should hold, or can it benefit enough just by having really, really clear policy on it? Because obviously you are at the end of the day spending taxpayer money. If you're buying it with assets you already have, you also have the ability to pay down the liabilities that exist. So I think it's all government money, regardless of what you say. It's cash neutral to the taxpayer. So I think I welcome criticism on it. So I think it's an important debate. But again, just going back to the topic at hand with Rachel, I mean, man, oh man, can it be any more ignorant when you start to throw everything in one bucket and just open with a sentence like that? That was completely pathetic.
100%. Also, too, breaking news, Rumble seems to be down as well, Opti, which is quite interesting. So
really, it was just working.
X and Rumble are down.
It's working for me. I think we're still good.
We're good? We're good?
I don't know. Rumble chat, are we still good? Because it still seems live for me. Anyways, let's just keep it going. Going.
What's your take on Adam's comments?
So kind of what I was saying in the beginning is, like, as much as the chat right now is like, why are you playing this? This is very blatant propaganda here. I think it's very important to watch this stuff because that is the current state of, normies looking at Bitcoin. A lot of people probably look at Rachel Maddow and agree with a lot of the things she's saying right now, where they're like, I don't understand Bitcoin either. And this does look like a very blatant scam. Though there's a lot of things we talk about here on the show constantly is the separation of Bitcoin and altcoins. Obviously, we're still dealing with the stench of a lot of the stuff from the last cycle, whether it's like the BlockFi, FTX, just all of that stuff that we've seen, even Justin Sun and the, the things that she was bringing out. Though I will do a little pushback, Nico. You said she may be right in a lot of things. Well, I didn't know you can send Beanie Babies across the world over the internet in, 10 minutes or less. I didn't know Beanie Babies were fungible. I didn't know that there's, Beanie Babies are hard capped at 21 million. So I think this Beanie Baby comparison is absolutely atrocious. But again, a lot of people are looking at Bitcoin and they're probably saying something very similar. They probably don't understand Bitcoin. They're seeing Trump kind of engage in scam coins, and they're just like, what is this scam? Especially if you don't like Trump, it's very easy to be like, this is just a Ponzi. Obviously, the Ponzi meme is just classic FUD around Bitcoin. As everyone knows here as a Bitcoiner, it's like, I don't want to get rid of the Bitcoins that I hold. So like that's, that whole Ponzi thing, completely out like out of what all of us think, it's like we want to hold this stuff for as long as possible. I'm not trying to jump on the next idiot. You know, this isn't greater fool theory playing out. It's like, this is my savings. I want to hold it for as long as possible. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff that I wasn't aware about Bitcoin. You know, I didn't know Bitcoin was a teddy bear here, and you know, I can store it in a little, you know, stuffed animal here. But as I was saying, it's very clear that a lot of people don't understand what's going on with Bitcoin, and the fact that this is kind of the low hanging fruit FUD that she's putting out there and people are kind of agreeing with her just goes to show, one, obviously we all know that she's kind of, you know, more on the left side here, and anything Trump's going to do, she's going to bash it. But on the flip side is like what Adam was saying, this is probably what a lot of people think about Bitcoin, and there's still a lot of asymmetric misunderstanding going on in the markets. People fundamentally don't know what Bitcoin is. Again, many people haven't asked themselves what money is, and yet this is why they don't understand what Bitcoin is. And so we're under 100K. We all know Bitcoin's probably going to go up incredible amounts. 1 million is not out of the question here in the next couple of years. And we all know, as the world does start to move more digital, there's two choices. It's either a CBDC or it is Bitcoin. And we know that the establishment has pushed for more of a cashless society. And it's our duties to continue to educate people and be like, hey, look, you're either going to get forced into a CBDC dystopia, or we go into, you know, I hate to use the word utopia here, but a Bitcoin utopia, a bright orange future here where your life gets cheaper, the world gets more free, and we are no longer subjugated to the people in political power stealing our wealth away. So, like, look, if you fall for the propaganda, we'll be here when you're ready, but it looks like this is kind of the current state of mainstream's understanding of Bitcoin. So, you know, this is why we still get under 100K Bitcoin. So I don't know. This is kind of bullish.
It is definitely bullish in the long term. Anyways, guys, seems like Rumble is back. It was down for a little bit, according to the comments. So shout out to everybody watching us live on Rumble. Shout out to everybody watching us live on YouTube. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. We still have a ton of content to cover for you guys. We have David Sachs comments on the recent All In podcast. David Sachs is the AI and crypto czar for the White House. Michael Saylor announces that he somehow manages to just continue to raise money to buy more Bitcoin. He announces a $21 billion STRK. Hold on a second. STRK at the market program. I'm going to ask Adam what that means. And of course, we have the clip of Saylor basically talking about his orange tie. And if we have the chance, we have a very, very fitting video for you guys from American HODL. If we have time, we'll show you that. We'll show that for you guys today. If not, we'll show it to you guys tomorrow. All right, everybody, let's hit the news. We have tons to talk about. We will be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Bitcoin security matters, but managing private keys can sometimes be complicated, especially multi-sig. What if you can secure your Bitcoin without worrying about losing a seed phrase or giving up custody? With Casa, you can completely control your Bitcoin with multi-key security, so even if one key is lost or stolen, your funds stay safe. No single point of failure, no stress. That's what I absolutely love about these guys. They make taking Bitcoin into self-custody incredibly easy with their best in industry user experience through their app. I've been personally recommending Casa for years now to my friends and family because they will get all the benefits of multi-key self-custody security without the hassle of having to learn complicated UI. And if you're thinking of one day passing on your Bitcoin to the next generation, their inheritance plan has you covered. Also, if you're a business looking to add Bitcoin to your treasury, do it the secure way with Casa for Business. To get started, go to casa.io today and get 5% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium with promo code SIMPLY. Need liquidity without having to sell your Bitcoin? For more than 6 years now, Ledn has been the trusted choice for Bitcoin-backed lending with transparency, security, and trust at their core. I absolutely love these guys, and I personally have not only an account with them, but also a loan. And some of the key features that I love about Ledn is the fact that there are no monthly payments. You pay at the end of the term. You also have the ability to roll over the loan as well, and you could pay it back whenever you want. Essentially, what they do is that they help their clients unlock the liquidity of their BTC, allowing you to HODL while still accessing the wealth of your Bitcoin. They've been battle tested with their focus on transparency, security, and trust, allowing them to build a proven track record of client success and security, helping tens of thousands of clients harness the value of their digital assets with confidence and peace of mind. Learn more about what your BTC can do for you. Check out ledden.io today.
All right, everybody, we are back. So I think this was my favorite part of the entire conference. By the way, it was a lot shorter than people were thinking, right? It was like literally like the Opti was mentioning this. It was like 15 minutes. The first 2.5 minutes, Trump was like, "We got the World Cup. You like the trophy of the World Cup?
Shitcoin.
This is awesome. This trophy. It's so gold. It's so great. It's so amazing." And then after, he was like, "All right, I'm just going to say a 5-minute speech. We're going to go around the table." And then he was like, "All right, everyone, just get the F out now." It was like a 15-minute press conference, which is okay. I mean, I'm sure they had a lot to talk about behind closed doors, but I was definitely expecting more. But this was my highlight of the whole thing. Other than Trump saying like, you shouldn't sell your Bitcoin. At least that's what they say, but who knows, which was hilarious. I don't know if you guys caught that. But here is Michael Saylor essentially saying, let's check it out.
Well, I'm wearing my orange tie.
He's very proud of his orange tie. He's the only one wearing the orange tie. And speaking of the Chad Saylor, this was an announcement from today. Strategy announces $21 billion STRK at the market program. It goes on to say, Strategy announced that it has entered into a sales agreement pursuant to which Strategy may issue and sell shares of its 8% Series A perpetual strike preferred stock, having an aggregated offering price of up to $21 billion. Shares of the perpetual strike preferred stock are convertible by the holders into shares of Strategy's Class A common stock. Strategy expects to make sales of perpetual strike preferred stock pursuant to the ATM program in a disciplined manner over an extended period of time, taking into account the trading price and trading volumes of the perpetual strike preferred stock at the time of sale. So I'm going to ask Adam, it's a little bit above my pay grade. What does this mean, man? Like Saylor, I feel like he's found all this like extremely complex financial engineering in order to essentially find an infinite money glitch to continue to buy more Bitcoin. Like, when does this end? Could he continue to do this forever? Adam.
Look, I think what Saylor's really mastered is he's able to play different pieces of the capital markets because there's a real shortage of dollars coming into the digital asset space. And so, when you think about it, how can you buy Bitcoin today? Of course, you can buy physical Bitcoin, which we all know and love. You can buy the ETFs. You can play the miners. You can buy Coinbase. But there isn't like a plethora of different options to enter into the space. And what he's done really well is there's a whole bunch of buyers. There's a really deep, a pool of capital available for, convertible stock and for, specifically investors that are really looking to play the volatility of that. And so he's been able to tap into that, pool of capital when no one else has done that. And he's played it like a fiddle over the past, 18, 24 months. To really come up with a massive capital raise to do that. So he's doing it again. I think this time when you look at the yield, if I stand correctly, I think he's paying a higher yield than he has paid in the past, and that's maybe reflective of market conditions. I think he's done some at under 1%. It looks like this time he's issuing it at a coupon of 8%. Again, if I understand it, I haven't dug into it in detail, so correct me if I'm wrong there. But it looks like, again, he's saying, what does the market need? How can I play into this? What do I need to price to get to maximize volume? And he knows that, the market's really receptive to him buying Bitcoin and playing this trade. So it's a huge dislocation as to where the demand is versus where he can, of course, source supply for Bitcoin. He's able to repeat that because there isn't a lot of options for this pool of capital.
Interesting. A great perspective. I knew Adam would know the answer. Know the answer. That's why I'm asking him. Opti, what's your take on this? I mean, Michael Saylor continuing to buy Bitcoin right off the gate on Monday. He's like, look, it's dipping. I don't care. I wore my orange tie. I'm going to figure out a way to raise more money and buy more Bitcoin. Opti.
Yeah, like you said, this is above my pay grade, but whatever Saylor's doing to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible, I wish I had the capabilities of doing. So like Adam was saying, it just looks like he's figuring out new ways to offer products to the market that either they don't know they want or they really do want. And so we're starting to see, as we'll cover in the culture a little bit, we are entering a new paradigm here where banks are kind of coming into Bitcoin, and they're probably going to be offering some similar products here. But Michael Saylor has been showing a masterclass here, and he's the first one to the punch. So it's going to be very interesting if Saylor can keep that premium with all of these strategy products here. But hey, man, he's buying 21 billion or, seemingly going to buy 21 billion of Bitcoin. I forget the numbers here, but that's a lot of I think it was 150% of all the Bitcoin that will be mined at today's price. So at a certain point, something has to give, and the Bitcoin price is going to rip, because there seems to be a lot of demand to scoop up the remaining Bitcoin. And this Bitcoin price can't just maintain going sideways for too much longer. So it is very interesting to watch. And again, like I said, I wish I had these rates and these capabilities. Nico, when are we going to do this for Simply Bitcoin, bro? What's going on?
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, bro. It's I don't know, dude. I think things are a lot easier when you're bigger. You get access to better deals, But anyways, I do have a clip from David Sachs from the All In podcast regarding his historic meeting at the White House, the first crypto summit at the White House. I have a clip of David Sachs talking about it. Let's check it out, and then we'll discuss.
Yeah, we're not picking favorites, obviously, except I will say this. We do think Bitcoin is special, and I can get into the reasons
explain why. That's a great thing, yeah.
Well, I mean, Bitcoin is the original cryptocurrency. It's the first one. It's the only one that doesn't have an issuer, right? It's very decentralized. It's, in crypto, they call this the Immaculate Conception. We don't really know how it got here. We don't know who Satoshi is. It's almost mystical, you would say.
Yes.
It's the most valuable one. It has a $2 trillion market cap, and it's the most secure. It's never been hacked, right? So we're now, over 15 years into this journey, and there's been a lot of people who've been skeptical along the way, and there's been a lot of ups and downs. But here it is. I mean, I remember back in 2011, I think it's the first time I bought a Bitcoin. I think it was at $120. Now it's at $90,000. Again, there have been all sorts of wild swings along the way, but this thing just keeps chugging along. And you can think of that $2 trillion market cap as like a $2 trillion bug bounty. If there was a way to hack this, there's every incentive in the world. And by hack, I mean like to double spend, create basically a counterfeit Bitcoin, I guess would be the way for people to think about it. And
it is a miracle it hasn't been compromised. I think we can all say that.
Well, I don't know if it's a miracle. I think it's exceptional design.
Sure.
And so I think what you could say is that it's been tested in a very robust way, and there's been every incentive to basically break the encryption, and it continues to chug along. And so I think the price has gone up as the protocol has gotten more acceptance. And this is another point, is that Bitcoin is the most widely accepted as a store of value throughout the world.
Wow. I mean, a couple things to unpack here, right? So first of all, I love the internet. And the reason I'm saying that is because there you have essentially someone who works in government, and he's not being interviewed via legacy media. With legacy media interviews, guys, like they're very well produced, but there's like it's very structured. It's no longer than, some of them are a little bit longer, but it's usually like a 20 to 45 minute interview. The production quality is amazing, but it's like very rehearsed. It's not an organic type of conversation. So it's really refreshing to see someone in the administration just have like just a regular conversation about a specific subject, specifically after the historic summit that happened at the White House. And then the other thing that I'll say is like, regarding the price, right? Because we are dumping. This is why I'm assuming a lot of you guys are tuning into us right now. Like, what's happening with the price of Bitcoin? Like, that is essentially Trump's right-hand man when it comes to Bitcoin and digital assets. And then Trump's other right-hand man is Howard Lutnick. Both of them, David Sachs and Howard Lutnick, own a lot of Bitcoin, right? And at the end of the day, no one is better than their incentives, right? So, I mean, look, like this is a, in my opinion, a one in a generation buy the dip opportunity. You're getting a 33% discount. I showed you guys the screenshot in the beginning of the show where the White House is basically saying, like, look, guys, we want the U.S. to be the strategic, the Bitcoin capital of the world. Like, who would have thought that? And then the last thing I'll say before I pass it on to Adam is, like, he's clearly differentiating Bitcoin between the rest of the rest of the cryptos. And I think a lot of people kind of heading into it were not expecting that. The White House was a little bit vague with its first initial executive order regarding digital assets. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's extremely bullish from my perspective. That's how I'm interpreting it. And I just love the era of social media. I love the era of the internet where you can have those types of conversations and it's not in a highly controlled environment. Adam, what's your take on this, man? I mean, how could you not be like when you hear that, right? From the AI crypto czar, the White House, of the most powerful country on the face of the planet, simultaneously they're saying, look, guys, we're going to figure out ways to buy Bitcoin. I know we can't do it. We can't just, we can't use taxpayer money, but there's a whole lot of ways where they can essentially reallocate assets into Bitcoin, and it's in a budget neutral fashion, right? So, I mean, I don't know how you cannot be bullish at this point. Adam, what's your take?
Look, I think the best thing that Trump has done for this is bringing in experts that have been in the space, right? I think typically what you get in government is you get career bureaucrats that have been career politicians going around meeting with industry and then trying to get up to speed on this. But, look, David Sachs, as he said, he's buying Bitcoin at 120. He's been in the space for years. He understands it. He's been a tech entrepreneur. So that's the best thing possible because he's able to give advice about what really helps people build in the space. In my opinion, I think we have to be a little bit less obsessed with the U.S. buying Bitcoin and getting the policy right for people to want to own Bitcoin in the U.S. and want to build Bitcoin companies in the U.S. Because to me, that's much more important. And that decentralized buying, I think, is going to be an aggregate way bigger than the U.S. concentrating buying and way less controversial. So, I think that's what they're doing is let's make it a great place to want to own, store, custody, again, build on Bitcoin versus obsessing with, how much is the U.S. going to own every day. And I think if that gets done right, the price appreciation is going to be way bigger and way more important than just trying to calculate how much the U.S. government can move the market as a centralized entity.
I love that. Great take. Before I move on to Opti, I do want to give a shout out to the live stream. 742 live viewers on YouTube alone. Help us break 300 likes before the first hour and 10 of the show. So if you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. I did ask the community, 322 votes so far. I said, is the cycle over? 76% of you guys voted no. So 76% of the chat is still feeling bullish. And of course, shout out to the Rumble audience, 400 live viewers on Rumble. So shout out to you guys as well. Opti, what is your take, man? I mean, even though we're dumping 78K, the price is going, it sucks. Our net worth is evaporating before our eyes. I'm still feeling really, really good, man. Maybe it's because I've been in this market for so long and I'm just so used to getting metaphorically beat up by the Bitcoin price cycles and the Bitcoin roller coaster. But what's your take, man? I mean, that's pretty crazy. I mean, this is something that we were not expecting as Bitcoiners. Like the fact that Mr. Sachs is basically saying, like, look, we're seeing Bitcoin differently than the rest. What's your take, Opti?
Well, on your last point, I think we're just dead inside. This price action means nothing to us. We will hodl this forever. No, I'm kind of trolling. I might have a little heart left, a little one. Well, seeing David Sachs, first of all, I love this new version of David Sachs on the All In podcast. If you guys know the All In podcast, it's obviously David, Jason, and Chamath, and there's someone else that's usually like the 4 panel members. They, all billionaires that have been talking about all things economics and tech for years now. And I love this new David Sachs version because you can tell maybe I might get a different take than Nico. You can tell he is kind of restrained a little more, which I like, because now he's really going just full Bitcoin. And as we know, and I do have to fact check something that I've said last week, and I saw a little more on Twitter over the weekend. I was saying that David Sachs is most likely one of the main drivers behind the Solana stuff being added to the crypto reserve or the stockpile. But it came out over the weekend, or rather he's been kind of saying it on his Twitter, and maybe I just saw it over the weekend, that he's essentially divested from all of his crypto holdings. So he is apparently completely divested from all his crypto holdings, which I think it might be an L considering he's not holding Bitcoin at this moment. But at least we know he's not really, you know, that whole Elizabeth Warren thing that you guys have been saying. Did you hear about that, Nico? Elizabeth Warren sent a letter about conflicting interest and insider trading type stuff with David Sachs.
She's projecting, bro.
Of course. Anyways, David Sachs says he doesn't hold anything right now, and he's the crypto czar. So I find it very interesting that he is pumping Bitcoin so hard, considering that historically they've kind of joked about all the other, you know, like literally VC dumping on Main Street. And I love seeing Jason sit there and kind of have to like hold back on it and eat his his humble pie there, because it doesn't seem like he really likes Bitcoin as much as every one of us do. He's obviously a little more crypto friendly. And this David Sachs on the show, he's like, look, we're going to treat Bitcoin differently. Bitcoin is the different beast here out of everything else. And, you know, it's going to go up because obviously it's getting added to the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Of course, they're also in like suits, I think, for some of the, you know, one of the first couple of times here. So that is pretty interesting. But I think we're seeing, obviously, a new era here for Bitcoin, and a lot of us Bitcoiners are wrapping our heads around this. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter being, oh, now that the US is embracing Bitcoin, how's that separation of money and state going? And it's like, guys, we knew this was going to happen eventually. Bitcoin is for anyone. Bitcoin is for enemies. Even governments need sound money. They probably need it more than us individuals if you're really kind of breaking it down. But all of us are here to protect our purchasing power and make sure that we don't get poorer as you know, the Titanic that is the fiat ship goes down. And though they are trying to do a lot of things to get some more trust and credibility in the financial markets, because people are having concerns about the dollar. And obviously this is why this push for Bitcoin is such a significant moment in history. And I think we're going to look back on this and be like, yeah, man, that was one of those points where we can fundamentally look back and be like, this is where Bitcoin changed, hopefully for the better. I know a lot of people are concerned now because the government is getting into Bitcoin. I know a lot of people are saying like, oh, we're probably never going to get another soft fork in Bitcoin now that it's like a strategic national concern. But I don't think that Bitcoin governments will have any more influence over Bitcoin than anyone else. But we are entering the big leagues, guys. Like, you know, as we've been joking, Nico and I are probably going to have to wear suits here. No more hoodies on Simply Bitcoin. We got to wear suits.
Dude, when I was in DC, and actually Mauricio was on the episode that day. When I was in DC to interview Senator Lummis and I did the show from the hotel room, I wore a suit on that episode, and that episode blew up. Right. So maybe there's something about suits, Opti. Maybe there's something we're missing, bro. Anyways, guys, I do want to give a shout out to the live stream. 720 live viewers on YouTube, 400 live viewers on Rumble. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, smash the like button. X is down today, unfortunately, but we'll have it back on tomorrow. Let's get to the culture. We're going to take advantage of the fact that we have Adam in the house. Adam is the CEO of Ledin, and we're going to talk about all things Ledin. We're going to talk about other topics as well. So guys, stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're going to hit the culture segment.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's positioned to quadruple their global footprint in 2025. And as the first with an AI strategy, HIVE continues to make moves in sustainable, high-performance computing. They consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, and now they're headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're changing the game. You can catch the latest buzz by following them at HIVE Digital Tech or check out their website at hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a shout out to our partner, CoinKite. If you take your Bitcoin security seriously, you'll need the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market to take self-custody. That's where Cold Card comes in. The Cold Card Q is the most advanced Bitcoin signing device ever made. It's got a full keyboard, larger screen, and NFC support, making air-gap signing easier than ever. It's built for power users who want the ultimate security without sacrificing usability. And if you're looking for a battle-tested, uncompromising cold storage, the Cold Card MK4 is your go-to with PSPT signing, an industrial-grade secure element, and USB-C. It's the perfect blend of security and convenience. Both devices are, of course, 100% Bitcoin only, open source, and built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Secure your Bitcoin the right way with the Cold Card Q and the MK4. Head over to coldcard.com today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off anything on the store.
All right, everybody, we are back, and we got Adam in the house. Opti, it's all yours. Wait, hold on. Before we do that, Adam, I don't think I've ever asked Mauricio this. Could you tell us the story? Ledin started in 2018. Is that correct?
That's right.
What motivated you guys to start the company?
Look, I owe Mauricio for introducing me to Bitcoin. Mauricio and I met at business school in Canada. We went to school together back in 2005, 2007 timeframe. And we stayed in touch. And Mauricio was back and forth between Venezuela, where he grew up, in Canada. And he got into Bitcoin mining in Venezuela because, that was a really a roundabout way to take advantage of the economic subsidies in Venezuela. And I was working in renewable power, specifically wind and solar and hydro energy. And so he got in touch with me because he wanted to continue mining Bitcoin in Canada. And I was his good friend that knew how to get access to low cost power in Canada. And so he introduced me to it. And I said, what is this Bitcoin thing? Why do you need electricity to mine it? This was 2016 timeframe. And we set up a mine together. We set up a mine in Quebec, which has the lowest cost power in Canada. And then from there, we went to finance our Bitcoin mine. And we couldn't get access to financing, let alone even open up a bank account. And so it was an interesting experience approaching different Canadian banks and say, hey, we want to expand. I was used to, approaching banks for financing for renewable power, which was pretty developed at the time and well structured, and said, this is kind of like an infrastructure project. Bitcoin mine has a big upfront cost. And then as you're operating it, you get a tail of cash flows, of course, in Bitcoin, not fiat, from running it. And I thought, this is very similar to how, again, an infrastructure project is financed. So why not? Why can't we finance the same thing? And from the lack of availability of financing became the opportunity for Ledin. And so we decided to focus less on Bitcoin mining and instead create a financing product for Bitcoin. And so we launched Canada's first Bitcoin-backed loan in 2018. At first, we were solely focused on the mining market. And we thought, we're financing Bitcoin, not really the mine itself. So why can't we make this available for all Bitcoiners? The amazing thing about Bitcoin is, of course, it's the same everywhere. So again, we said, why are we doing this just in Canada? We can do it all around the globe. And we iterated from there and making sure the product was available. And we focused specifically first on marketing to Latin America because we thought, people in that region could benefit from the products the most. And we expanded. So yeah, that was the 2018. And then, of course, we had the benefit from the market really taking off during the COVID period and went from doing, a couple $1,000s of loans a month to in April 2021, we did 50 million in 1 month. And so that was when the business really exploded.
Incredible. That's awesome. And I remember one of the things in entrepreneurship that they tell you is like, build the things that you need, right? Like if you don't see something that exists, you're like, oh, wow, let me just build this myself. And bada bing, bada boom. And that sounds like such an incredible, success. It is such an incredible success story. And I do want to address a question in the chat. Someone is asking, essentially, is Ledin available in the U.S.? Yes, it is available in the U.S.
Yes.
I am a U.S. citizen and I use Ledin, and they're absolutely awesome. The part where it like completely surprised me, and I was like messaging Mauricio, Adam, about this when I first opened up a loan with you guys. I was so surprised by the fact that you guys don't do monthly payments, right? It's you pay up at the end of the term. And I was like messaging Mauricio. I'm like, hey man, like how do I make the payment? It's not asking me. And then I realized, which is really, really cool, the way that you guys approach that, because it takes away the burden from the user, essentially, right?
Well, that's what never made sense to us when we compared it against other products. I mean, you're borrowing cash because you want cash. Why are we going to ask for cash, a month later, right? It's like, there's a reason that you're Bitcoin rich, cash poor. You want to spend the cash on other things, but then, if we were doing monthly payments, again, we're just asking you to pay that back, in that payment. So again, that was the reason why we did it that way.
Absolutely. So someone's asking in the chat, is this a Canadian-based company?
We were. So we started the company in Canada. We still have quite a few team members in Canada, but we had an opportunity to move the business to the Cayman Islands because they have a really good program for digital assets in 2023. But we have a US entity as well, and we actually have a European entity based in Spain as well. So as the world's becoming more regulated, we set up local entities to make sure we meet that regulation. So the US entity, we're just in the process of launching, but depending on where you're domiciled, you'll face different entities within Latin.
Amazing. Opti, I'm going to pass it on to you because I know you got questions for Adam.
I do. Well, Adam, thanks for coming on. And I know one thing that we did cover earlier, but we didn't really get a lot of time to kind of bring that back into Ledin and what you guys are doing. We just heard that, the Office of Comptroller is basically allowing banks to custody Bitcoin. So what does this mean for the Bitcoin space? And then also, what does this mean for Ledin in particular?
Yeah, so there's two major changes happening within the U.S. accounting rules, and one is previously when companies own Bitcoin, they through the U.S. GAAP accounting rules, when the market price changed, they had to mark it down, but for some crazy reason, they didn't get to mark it back up. So you can imagine what that does to the balance sheet. Is we're at 107K, you bought then, and then now we're at 79K, and so you're only showing it at 79, despite hopefully it'll go back up again to levels where it was before, and so you don't get the benefit from that. So that was a reason that disincentivized companies and banks as well from owning Bitcoin on their own balance sheet. The other thing that was happening was when banks wanted to custody Bitcoin on behalf of clients, they actually had to treat it as a full liability and collateralize it one-to-one with their own cash. So imagine trying to make money where you're holding $1 billion of Bitcoin on behalf of clients, and then you have to take $1 billion of your own money and just put it aside in case you theoretically lose that $1 billion on behalf of clients. It doesn't make any sense. It's not how banks deal with any other asset class. And of course, it would destroy the economics when they're maybe earning a couple basis points or maybe max 1 or 2% on managing that Bitcoin for clients, and then they have to have their own capital that maybe is a cost of 10%, which they're trying to get on their own capital for returns, and it destroys their economics. So these two reasons are the reasons why it hasn't been popular for financial institutions to offer Bitcoin services. But what we think is going to happen with those changes is banks are going to start to offer different financial services for Bitcoin. And we're excited about this for Ledin because the space is really, really short dollars. We think overall, on a market cap of almost 1.6 trillion today for Bitcoin, we think there's only 1 to 2, maybe 3 billion of retail taking loans with Bitcoin. So the market is really, really small today when it comes to loans as far as the overall market cap of Bitcoin. So there's a long way to go, and there's a lot more dollars that need to come in to be able to finance that. And a comparison that I love making is if you compare Bitcoin to real estate, in the US, 60% of residential homes have a mortgage on them. And so I think about that a lot with Bitcoin is imagine if the Bitcoin adoption for lending was the same and people started to borrow more and use their Bitcoin as a savings vehicle and then accessing financing, just like you run a line of credit against your home or a home equity line. And then you kind of draw it when you need it. And of course, you're doing that so you never have to sell your Bitcoin. So I think, there's going to be a big change happening when the broader adoption of Bitcoin lending happens and people can access, a lot more volumes than they are today.
Love
Incredible.
It. One quick question on that before we kind of pivot. Do you think with traditional banks coming into Bitcoin that not only will the lending Bitcoin space be more competitive, but do you think that rates would be a lot lower for users as this starts to kind of companies start to outcompete themselves?
That's exactly it. I mean, the rates today are quite a bit higher, but really the function of a Bitcoin-backed loan is from a risk perspective is not that dissimilar to how margin financing works. So what I always say, and I pitch institutional investors and banks all the time, that's where I spend the majority of my efforts, outside of running the operations at Ledin, is getting in front of, different banks and saying, this is why you should be in the space. And I say, hey, when I want to buy Tesla stock, if I have a brokerage account at your bank, you'll lend me money at 50 basis points over the treasury yield. So I can get, 5, 6% money to buy stocks, and stocks, they have windows where they're not trading. So, Bitcoin is far more liquid than Tesla stock. People talk about the volatility. Tesla stock has been more volatile, and you've got gap risk. So, you can't trade Tesla stock after hours. You can't trade it on nights and weekends. So what happens if Elon goes off the handle on Friday night? You've got to wait 3 days to be able to sell your position Monday morning. Versus Bitcoin, you can enter a trade the next minute. So it's far more liquid. Those windows reduce the risk dramatically, and so I think longer term it should converge. And we're excited about that. We run a spread business, so I want the cost of capital to be as low as possible, so we can pass that on to our clients and make sure that more and more people are interested in borrowing against Bitcoin because the economics make more sense for them.
Got it. Awesome. One thing you mentioned. Did I lose Nico? I think I lost Nico. One thing you mentioned before you came on the show, which I found it very interesting, and I never really thought about this, but you said Ledin is increasing the fairness because you guys are so global. Like, what does this mean for people out there? Like, what, or maybe give some context of how the traditional financial world works right now and how Ledin is filling that hole.
Yeah, so I mean, back to the comment that Rachel made, I always say, like, I'm Canadian, but I think it's the same in America. I think there's a lot of people that have never seen the value of Bitcoin because for the most part, they've had a banking system that's always worked. Of course, people are negative and rightly so critical about governments, but there's higher trust of government in the US than, say, a place like Egypt. So if I want to talk to someone in Egypt about Bitcoin, the conversation is probably 2 minutes. Versus trying to convince one of my relatives in Canada about Bitcoin because they have high trust in institutions. So the same thing is for financial services. Sometimes when we offer or originate a new client in, say, a market like Colombia, it might be the first time that they've ever had a loan approved. And this is amazing building for self-confidence. It's also obviously helping them, with different expenses or, things that come up. But it's massive because what we don't realize is, for the most part, financial services are available for the wealthy or privileged in markets like Colombia because the property rights just aren't the same. So, if I want to access a loan in the US, I can do that fairly easily. But just the same thing doesn't exist in other markets. So what we can do is, because Bitcoin is the same in Colombia or in Egypt as it is the same in the US, I can create a product that's exactly the same when it comes to financial services. So the cost of capital is identical because the risk of being able to recall that asset is the same and equal. So I love this because typically, again, if I want to compare it to mortgages where there's different property rights, I have to charge higher rates in a developing economy than I do in the US because there's a different risk profile of the asset that I'm financing. But I love that about Bitcoin because we can treat people equal. We don't care where they're from, who they are, what they believe in, what their race is. Everything is the same because it's just Bitcoin.
Dude, that's so incredible. I mean, that's absolutely awesome. I love the tagline that you guys use too, right? Which is you're able to access the wealth of your Bitcoin, and I think that's something that a lot of us Bitcoiners like find ourselves in. And of course, you have to do this responsibly, right? Because if you're going 90% of your Bitcoin stack, you put in a loan, and you can find yourself in a very interesting situation because of the volatility. But if you do it responsibly, like 1% or something like that, it really allows you to. You guys say it. We say it every single day, right? It allows you to tap into your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin, and then also there's no tax implications as well because it's a loan, right?
That's it.
So I find that extremely interesting, and it's definitely a tool that you can use in your Bitcoin journey if you choose to, right? It's totally up to you, right? As a Bitcoin entrepreneur on a different level, on the more media / podcast side, definitely have found myself in situations where the company needed money or something like that. And this is a very, very useful tool that you can tap into responsibly. I have to say that multiple times because, volatility is a thing, and these are Bitcoin-backed loans. So you do have to, you have to be responsible because you can get margin called, right? I do want to talk to you about this, Adam. Like, there was so many of these companies that blew up over the last, I would say, 3 or 4 years, that really like tarnished that Bitcoin-backed loan industry. Like it really gave it a bad name. Why? Like what different approach did you guys take? And what assurances do people have, right? That if they use the lead-in product, and how do you guys approach it? I asked Mauricio the same question every single time he comes on the show.
Sure. Yeah, of course. So I think the important thing that I like to differentiate is there was within all of these companies, the actual Bitcoin-backed over collateralized retail product did well and had zero losses. And we had, privy to this because we were able to look at, the assets of the different companies to help them, out of bankruptcy and look at some of the details. And it was really the under or uncollateralized loan portfolios where they were either lending to uncredible counterparties, uncreditworthy counterparties, or they were directly, frankly, investing and converting, assets they were paying yield on into a different type of asset, and sometimes putting them in illiquid assets. So it was the yield portfolios of the majority of the crypto lenders that did poorly, where they're offering interest on different types of crypto assets, and then again, not deploying that responsibly. And a perfect example, from our understanding, some of the other lenders out there were converting assets. And so let's say I want to pay yield on Chainlink, for an example only. I might be able to offer 8% on Chainlink, but then when I want to lend Chainlink, the market makers may not need that asset. So what some of these companies were doing was they were converting it and saying, okay, well, I can't lend Chainlink, but I can lend stables. And so they'd actually convert the Chainlink to stables, and now they're introducing pricing risk. So of course, if Chainlink price stays the same, they're fine, or if it decreases, they're fine because they can buy it back. But if that rallies, now they're short the asset, and there's huge pricing risk in buying that back. Then they're taking the dollars, and again, if you lock the dollars up for longer term, you get paid a higher yield. So again, putting aside risk management, that's tempting because you can increase your profits by locking that in. In some cases, some of these companies were buying mining equipment. Mining equipment is not liquid. Obviously there's a fairly long payback on getting that back. And now, of course, now they're getting paid in Bitcoin instead of taking the stables that they lent out. So there's a lot of different pricing or dislocation there. What that did was like always really simple stuff. So at the time of the crypto crisis, we only supported Bitcoin and stable coins. Since then, we've added ETH and added Tether. But even the ETH thing, the only reason we added it was actually to support Celsius clients out of the bankruptcy because they had a need to convert their alts into ETH and that. But ETH is a very, very small piece of Ledin's portfolio today, less than 3% of our total AUM on the platform. So we're by far and large a pure Bitcoin company. So with that, again, it was only supporting assets that had true market value, Bitcoin and stables, not taking advantage of longer tenured. We always say, if you want to deposit assets with Ledin and get paid a yield, and we're offering that open term, we have to make sure that we can fulfill all those withdrawals if every single client asks for their money back tomorrow. And so that's what we'd focus on, is only deploying, assets in liquid loans and just really simple stuff. So, how we generate yield in our yield products today is, for the most part, very generic market making. So this is, Bitcoin is higher price trading on Coinbase, is on Kraken, so Arbing, those two exchanges, and supporting the ETF. So the ETF actually created an interesting borrow need for Bitcoin because, if I show up and I want to buy the BlackRock IBIT, unit, the ETF, I want to see that in my account instantly. And behind the scenes, because we're talking about TradFi rails, that doesn't settle instantly. So someone actually has to go buy that Bitcoin, create the unit, wrap it into an ETF wrapper, and then deposit it through CompuShare and other types of intermediaries to get that unit into the Wells Fargo or JP Morgan account or wherever I bought through. So that takes a couple days. And Bitcoin lending fulfills that market because it solves that illiquidity between the time I want to have that unit in my account and the actual, Bitcoin rails that settle instantly versus TradFi rails that take a couple days. So it's that type of stuff that we're doing. Very, benign things that we, and that's the reason we're only paying, a few percentage points on that, because we don't want to take, any significant risk with client assets, of course. So yeah, it's keeping it simple like that and making sure that we're not doing crazy stuff and not getting ahead of ourselves.
Gotcha. And we have a question in the chat by Anthony. And again, if you're coming from the traditional world, that this could definitely, it makes sense, right? So Anthony says, what is the qualifications if you don't have relatively good credit? That's a great question. You don't need qualifications. It's a Bitcoin-backed loan. So you use Bitcoin as the collateral. You guys don't even ask for credit score, right?
That's it. And a really interesting point on this. So we spoke to a potential lender last week that could have been one of our institutional partners, and they actually asked, well, can you start to collect FICO scores in the US, because that's the type of credit package that we're used to, and we'd feel better, if we had that as a backup to the Bitcoin-backed loans. I said, no, that doesn't make sense for our business. I said, the minute we start doing that, we treat Americans differently than citizens of other countries, and that's not the purpose of Ledin. The purpose of Ledin is to make sure we can offer the same types of rates everywhere and only deal with Bitcoin. So if you can't get comfortable with Bitcoin as the asset solely, we're not interested in your capital, because that's the complete and only collateral package that we need to provide a loan.
Amazing. Very, 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 very cool. And I hope that answers your question. For anyone, it's a different world, guys. It's a different world. That's what you guys have to, this is what you guys have to understand, right? Opti, I'm going to pass it on to you, and we are getting close to the top of the hour. But
Yeah. I think this is a good question from the chat, and I think this is where a good place we could wrap it up. So he just says, Ron P, can you just talk a simple A to Z process of how Ledin loans work? And I'll bring up your website as well. I think that's a good place to end it for the audience here.
Of course, really appreciate the question. So, we have a very simple sign-up process. Once you're signed up, we do KYC all of our clients. This is a requirement for our capital. So we use very simple software to do that. If everything's there, the KYC process can literally take 2 minutes. Once you're KYC'd, you can apply for a loan. What you do is to specify the amount of fiat you'd like to borrow. We can do something that's not commonly known is we can disperse in other types of currencies as well. So for example, if you're sitting in Mexico and you want pesos delivered to your account, we can do that for you. But the loan is always denominated in US dollars, and everything can be done same day. So you apply for the loan. As soon as your Bitcoin is sent, the collateral arrives. We process the loan, and in many cases, we process the loan same day. Our average time to land money in your account is 16 hours. So we have a really quick turnaround. Imagine doing that at the banks, but again, loans can happen same day or next day. But we're really proud of our processing times.
we have a question in the chat by Anthony. He says, what is the minimum amount you can get with, would 5K be okay?
Absolutely. So our minimum loan is $500. And we did this again because we know people may want to test the product before they get comfortable with a bigger loan. And two, we want to make it accessible to people all over the world. And of course, there's different income levels depending on the country you're from. So again, it was that fairness piece that we wanted to start at that level. So 500 is the minimum. We have clients that have 20 million board on the platform. So all shapes and sizes.
Incredible. All right, guys. Well, today is March 10th, 2025. This was Simply Bitcoin Live. I'm your host, Nico. My legendary co-host today, Optimus Fields in the co-host chair. And of course, our special guest today, Adam Reeds, CEO of Ledin. Guys, go check out ledin.io/borrowing if you want to find out more. If you guys enjoyed today's show, make sure to smash that like button and consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you value. We'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out, everybody.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.